Okay, so welcome to the first video of Strength Coach Network YouTube channel. Today, decided to talk about the top 7 tips to bear in mind when you're applying for a job via a cover letter and resume or CV. First one is to understand that if you're applying via that route, the chances are you're going to fail. The truth is that connections and network is always going to be the best thing to get you hired. This is why there are people that rise very quickly in the field who are well liked, they're well respected, sometimes they have a great track record in the sport as an athlete, but maybe not the most technically gifted or the best practitioners. So if you're going to be extremely knowledgeable, great coach, real good resume and cover letter, but nobody knows you, likes you and respects you, you're going to fail. So step one is to actually try not to go down that route and to put way more time and effort and attention into developing a network of influential people that are going to be advocates for you when applying for jobs. So obviously it's very easy to stand here and say, oh, you need a better network. But the truth is that a truly productive professional network that is going to allow you to just effectively walk into jobs, it takes years to develop. And my guess is that you don't want to wait years and years and years to get the kind of job that you want. So having said that, the chances are if you don't have first, second, third degree connection, it's going to allow you to get to the front of the line when applying for a job. You are going to have to apply for that job with a resume, CV and a cover letter. So if that is the case, I think the first thing you need to do is to understand the purpose of these documents, and ultimately that is to sell and to persuade. You are trying to sell you. You are trying to get the person hiring and the institution to invest in you as a coach, and you're trying to persuade them that you possess the necessary skills, experience, personal qualities that are going to make that organization better, not worse. And you're trying to maximize the perceived value of bringing you on relative to the perceived risk or cost of doing that. And that cost could be financial, it could be reputational, it could be the problems that you bring to the organization, but you want to minimize the perception of those. So I think in sales they say you should be selling, not telling. I think the same is true of your resume and your cover letter. Understand that you have to persuade the person reading it and put forth the best version of yourself, rather than just have a list of everything that you've done, where you've been and so on, because that's not very persuasive. So who are the most persuasive people on earth that we can steal secrets from? And to me, the answer is salespeople or business people, both online and offline. And one thing that these people understand is that before somebody can say yes to your product or service and buy or invest with you, they have to know that you exist, and you have to grab their attention to do that. So if you put yourself into the mind of the person hiring that's receiving all these resumes and cover letters and trying to sift through the pile, you have to do everything you can with these documents to jump out from the pile and grab that person's attention before you can actually get to the business of persuading them as to your value and minimizing the perceived risk of hiring you. So this is where things like layouts, fonts, logos, headshots, different color schemes all come into it, because basically when everyone else is zigging, you need to be zagging. And you want, if they're all printed out in a pile, to be yours that jumps out from the pile. And if you ever read a book called Purple Cow by Seth Godin, it's basically, he talks about in sales, you want to be remarkable. You want to be the cow that, because it's purple, people stop the car and get out and look at the cow. That has to be your resume and your cover letter. Number 3 is you have to consider human nature and remember the fact that human beings are dumb and lazy and they don't like to think for themselves. So they're always going to outsource a huge amount of their judgment to third parties. That is why customer reviews are such a big deal on Amazon, because the first thing that people do when they buy on Amazon is they go to the reviews, they go to the comments, and they see what people have thought of that product, so that they don't have to think for themselves and they can justify buying a product because what everyone else has said about what they're buying. The same thing is true with your resume, your cover letter. People want to see who you've worked with, prominent organizations, high-level athletes, places that you've spoken, conferences that you've attended. It's kind of sneaky, but you can borrow credibility from all of these things to subconsciously create an association between you and them in the head of the person that is sifting through the resumes. In this order: connections beats experience beats qualifications. And for that reason, you need to emphasize these three things in that order and give them prominence in your application. And people actually do this in reverse. They talk endlessly about their degrees or the professional accreditations that they've got. Then they'll go, into a little bit more detail about their coaching experience, and then they'll just briefly touch on, this guy or girl is a reference to me, I work with this person, and so on. When in reality, they need to flip it. You need to emphasize most prominently the people that you've worked for, your references and what they say about you, any positive association that you can get. Then you need to speak about your experience, where you worked, what the impact was, how many championships you won, how many games you won, and then really just touch on your education, almost like to check a box, because that's all these employers are going to do, is use your degrees, your accreditations, the letters after your name, to sift you into the yes pile or the no pile. And my advice is just hit the minimal criteria that they're looking for that job, and then move on to the stuff that matters. Because if we go back to being remarkable and being that purple cow, what is remarkable when applying for a job? A degree when everyone else has a degree, the same 4 letters after your name when everyone else has those? Or is it going to be training a star athlete, working for a high-level team, winning championships? These are the stuff that are scarce and valuable that not everyone is bringing to the table, and that's going to help you to stand out. Number 6 is to respect and value the time of the person that is reading that job application. So it is not uncommon these days for a decent job to have over 100 applications, even the less than decent jobs. And someone is going to have to read those resumes and those cover letters and try and go through them as quickly as possible, because every coach is time-starved. Bearing that in mind, do not write War and Peace. Do not write this huge, long cover letter. Do not write a waffly resume. I would say if you're going for a more senior level job, 2 pages max. If you can get it onto 1 page and still get across the key information, that's fantastic. You can also borrow from sales and copywriting this thing called a dual path readership. So if you ever noticed, even when you go onto a website to buy something, you can read in detail, or you can see the key points and skim down the page. You should do the same thing and just highlight on your resume your maybe a personal statement at the top, education, experience, references, and so on, but then also provide a little bit more detail if they do want to go through the document in detail. And you can be even sneakier and actually highlight the things that you want them to read if they do want to skim. I've actually included highlights in my resume and cover letters to save them the time of having to do it. And of course, it stands out from the pile and makes it remarkable they want to read. Lastly, number 7 is to create a narrative and tell a compelling story. Humans are just hardwired to be told stories and to create stories in their heads. So I'll give you a good example. If you just tell me where you worked and what you did, I did this session, I programmed for this athlete, and so on. It doesn't actually give me any information or tell me a narrative that you were good at what you did and that you made a lasting impact. And remember, that is what they're buying when they hire you. They want someone that's going to create a lasting impact and move the organization closer towards its stated mission. So a good example would be, well, here's all the duties that I did. And here's what the results were when we tested. Here's how many athletes we sent to the draft. Here's how many championships we won. Here's what happened to these number of injuries. You're creating the association, rightly or wrongly, that you did X and Y happened. And it makes it a lot easier for the person reading that piece of paper to create the narrative in their head that you are what you say you are, and that you're gonna bring about the impact that they're looking for in the person they hire. Bonus is call ahead. If you have connections that know somebody that's doing the hiring, you're gonna get them to call ahead for you via the phone or via email and say, hey, look out for this person's application. So it's a lot easier to jump out from the pile when they're looking for you already and they're expecting your application. You can also follow up yourself via email, via phone, just telling them that you've applied for the job. And again, they're going to be looking for it. You need to make it as easy as possible for them to find that application, for it to grab their attention, and then be persuaded by the narrative that you create in those documents. So, thanks for watching this first video. If you liked it, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. And if you'd like a whole lot of free resources to help you in your career as a strength and conditioning professional, just go to strengthcoachnetwork.com and sign up to the list. Thanks.